Well, it's that time of year again, the time when you panic and realize you have zero idea what to get your closest friends and family for Christmas, or whatever holiday you might be celebrating. If you're like me, you swing through various moods, including maybe if I pretend it's not real, Christmas won't come. Or, this year I'll hand make a gift for everyone. Or maybe it's time for gift cards. And that feels kind of soulless, so then all of a sudden you're like, wait, this whole thing is a scam. This isn't the true spirit of Christmas. I'm boycotting commercialism. And then 5 minutes later, you're on Amazon wondering how, after so many years of being alive, you could possibly still be so bad at choosing gifts. And then it hits you. You could get everybody a book. It's perfect. Books aren't expensive, but they don't feel cheap. They're personal. There's infinite variety. They're vaguely intellectual, and they wrap easily. And just like that, your problem is solved, and you head off to Barnes & Noble. But now you're here. Now what? What book do you get? Now, whether you yourself are a reader or you're just trying to buy a book for a reader, this isn't always the easiest question to answer. So I can't give you specific books that are going to be good because I don't know who you're buying for, but I can give you 4 examples of ways you can choose a book, whether or not you yourself are a reader. Because books can be phenomenal gifts, like an absolute slam dunk of a gift, but they can also be tricky, and giving a book that goes unread is kind of not a great feeling for the giver or the receiver or really anyone involved. So before I give even a single method of choosing a book, we'll start with a basic guiding principle. You're not giving someone a book because they can't get it on their own. Generally speaking, books aren't prohibitively expensive, so the person who you're giving this book to could, if you didn't intervene, they could still go to the library and get this book. And that's the way with a lot of gifts. You're not giving it to them because they couldn't get it. You're giving it to show that you love and care about this person and have thought about their interests and have something to give them that you think they might enjoy. And so one thing to keep in mind with books that I've found, a lot of my favorite books, I love, yes, for the book itself and for the content, but also for the context, the way that I was introduced to that book. For example, I found a lot of my favorite books tend to be books I have read on vacation. I really enjoyed Cixin Liu's The Three-Body Problem and the other 2 books in the trilogy, and I think I could have enjoyed them anywhere, but I particularly enjoyed reading them on vacation in North Carolina. So I was just totally off for a whole week, and I was able just to read with quiet, with nothing bothering me. And so I associate the book with that time. Now, you probably aren't going to be giving somebody both a book and a full week of paid vacation, but what you can do is you're trying to add to that experience, and that's what a gift is. You're trying to set up the meet cute, basically, between the reader and the book, so that the person is more likely to enjoy that book. So that's context. Now we're going to talk about content, how to choose what book specifically to get, because every reader is different. So I'm going to give you 4 ways to choose a book. Method number 0, so this isn't even going to count as one of the 4, is see if they have a list of books. Sometimes people post lists of books that they're trying to read, or they have maybe a friend or spouse that you can get a hold of that list. Like I have a list on my Goodreads account that just says, please buy for me. So these are just books that I have bookmarked for at some point in the future to get. If a list like that exists and you can get a hold of it, then hooray, your work is done. Okay, method number 1. Again, you're going to have to decide which of these methods works best for the person you're getting a book for. So not all of these will apply to everybody. But method number 1 is for genre readers. So people who really like reading a specific type of book. This is fairly easy to do. So for example, my wife really likes historical fiction. There may be somebody really likes murder mysteries. They just always like to read about murder. Merry Christmas, here's a book about some people dying. If you have seen somebody has 4 or 5 books by the same author or the very same genre on their shelf, it's a fairly safe bet that they'll enjoy another book like that. But not everyone has a specific genre they always gravitate towards, right? I myself, I'm more of an omnivore. I read old books, I read new books. It's kind of the nature of the channel being a book channel, but I do read a lot of different stuff. So it might be hard to pin me down. But a great way to buy a book for somebody who you can't quite nail down their reading taste, it's kind of all over the place, is see if there is one specific author that you can notice they have read multiple things by, and then get them something obscure by that author. For example, one of my favorite books I've ever been given, just like I felt very seen when I was given it, is this book, A Sense of Life by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. And for most people, it would be a terrible gift. Like, this is not a book I'm recommending you go out and buy for your person. But Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, if you may know, he wrote The Little Prince. That's like the famous one he's written, the most famous. But he's also written a lot of nonfiction or like kind of autobiographical fiction about his time flying mail from like Europe to Africa and being in charge of, you know, this rickety plane in the middle of the night and like crashing in the desert. And I don't know, it's just very fascinating. And I've read several of his books and not quite understood everything I've read, but like so many of the quotes stuck out to me that I would talk about him all the time. And so this gift is from my mother-in-law, and my wife told her kind of like a rundown of the things and the authors I like. And they looked up this author and found that he had written this book, which is basically a collection of short writings of his. And so when I opened it on Christmas, I was just overjoyed because it wasn't even something I knew I wanted, but I knew that there were people in my life who knew me well enough to recognize authors I was interested in and then find something of theirs that I didn't have. Something old, something out of print probably, something that had to get used. Not like a rare book, not anything like super crazy, but something I might not have bought myself or even known to look for. So this method would require you to do a little bit of digging, and you may end up on some used book websites, which I have a video here on how to buy books on thriftbooks.com. Not sponsored, just love using them. But if you can find something cool, this could actually be a very affordable and very wonderful way to show somebody that you care about their interests. Okay, method number 3, and this is going to be potentially an expensive option, but you know, depending on who you're buying for or what your circumstances are, you could go for a fancy version of a book that they have already read. For example, I have a couple of friends who are very into the Brandon Sanderson universe, the Cosmere, and so one of their wives got them a leather-bound copy, and so like it's basically a gimme. Like he's going to love it. And is it for reading? Is it for display? It almost doesn't matter. It just shows like, I know you care about this. Here's this fancy version. I know Easton Press. I don't own any of their books, but I've seen them around. They make like the fancy leather-bound versions of certain things. So depending on the person, that may or may not be the best idea, but it is an option. So keep that in mind. And then method number 4, and you're gonna think this is weird, but method number 4 is a book that you have read. And the reason that I'm putting this as method number 4 is I really want you to tread with caution on this one. Remember, the goal of giving a book is to give somebody an experience that they're going to like and tell them that you see them and you understand what they're interested in and you care about that. And yes, one of the best ways to do that is if you've read a book, had a wonderful time with it, you can guarantee that this person might like it. That's great. But this really only works if you know the other person well enough to know that they might like the same kind of books you like. Like if you and your friend are both really into literary fiction or business books, then this works. But if you don't even know what your friend is into reading, or you don't care and you just are going to it with a mindset of, ooh, I read this book, I liked it, let me order 10 copies of it, give one to everybody I know, and then they'll have as good of a time as I did, it probably won't really work like that. Now, I don't want to scare you off. If you read a book and you think it was phenomenal and you want to give that experience to somebody else, by all means, just take a minute to think, what does this other person like? Lean much more heavily towards, I really enjoyed this, and more importantly, I think you would really enjoy this because I know you and I see you, and much less or pretty much none on the other side of that equation, which is just, hey, read this book, I read it, you could use it, you'd like it, so here you go. But really don't worry too much about it. This guide isn't meant to make you feel panic over what you should or shouldn't buy. This is just a guide for those of us who are giving books potentially to do it in a way that is as caring and thoughtful as possible. Hopefully one of these methods will work for you. So hey, have a happy December. If you're still here, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. What is the best book you ever received as a gift, and why was it so wonderful? And if you're new here, hi, my name's Tim DeMoss, and I make videos on books and creativity. And if that sounds interesting to you and you'd like to know more about it, feel free to stick around. I hope you see some more videos that you like and that encourage you to read. Merry Christmas. I'll see you next time.